I started out working in disability services, okay? And then once my friend, my disabled friend, died from muscular dystrophy, I left Australia and I went overseas. So I just want to clarify this with everybody on the left or on the right or whatever the fuck, right? If it's WikiLeaks or whoever, okay, listen to me. When I was young, I was trained in the West End leftist community space, okay? And that's about social services for living people, okay? Right? We can agree that it's about living people, right? We're dealing with the living all the time. Are we in agreement with that? Mostly, anyway, okay? People die. There's statistics, right? We lose clients and stuff sometimes in the services, but you're generally dealing with living people in the community services, okay? So then you're dealing with then there's stuff like disability services. So I ended up in the disabilities services sector. I think now they call it NDIS, but it didn't exist when I was younger. Something else. Okay. So that's looking after people who are vulnerable members of society that have been deemed as disabled, right? Okay. So that's one thing. So if you work in a cannabis clinic, you're dealing, or as a pharmacist, you're dealing with living people, compassionate care, and your politics are always about living. Okay. With me, once I left Australia in 2005 and I got away from a whole bunch of negative people that I was starting to roll around with and stuff, right? I got away from them and I moved overseas. When I left disabilities, I chose to go into mortuary affairs. Mortuary affairs is the politics related to dead people. So, okay, usually if you were before, okay, maybe you live in a youth hostel, you're here to do some type of daytime seminar or something like that for us, right? Okay. Good morning. Okay. Come here, meet everybody, right? Um, disabled, you're getting off the bus, you've had your breakfast and everything, you're here. Now you meet Dave. Okay. So I went from that to, hey, you were deployed in the battlefield and all of a sudden something blew up in front of your face and you're dead. Okay. You can't be found. Or they say the probability of you being found is very fucking low. Okay. Good morning. Meet Dave. Dave's here fucking 52 years after you got blown away, trying to find some scrap of fucking uniform or bone or something like that to identify so your family can fucking bury that finger in a grave in Killeen, Texas. Right? So you always are telling me that I'm thinking wrong and I'm calling you guys left. I'm saying it's a lefty thing, but I think it's like even conservatives are kind of dumb, right? David isn't wired to think about the politics of living individuals. David's wired to look at the reality of the fact that people die in battle every fucking day, right? People die on training exercises every day. Somebody has to be there to deal with that reality day in, day out, and not fold or anything like that. They have to have the acumen to be able to deal with that reality on day in, day out basis. Okay. So when I'm coming to you guys with pragmatic solutions, right? I'm saying, okay, usually everyone, like the people that we're dealing with are dead. So this is why I can come at the occupational workplace health and safety from a higher level than most people, because in mortuary affairs, your clientele are dead usually. They're 100%, the clientele are dead, or your clients are, and they're legal clients, but they're not clients that are paying you or anything like that particularly. Maybe they've just given you the legal justification to be looking for their family member that's missing in that region, right? So dealing with clients, like people speaking to you about the realities all the time of like the funeral arrangements, right? So if your family member is killed in a war, the funeral arrangements are something that can get passed down by multiple generations, and people are always planning on, hey, if we can finally recover great grandfather, we want to bury him beside blah blah blah. So that's another component of it, which and then you're dealing with family members all the time. So with me, the thing that's always made it easier for me to do it than everybody else, and like I'm informed, has made me informed, is the fact that my grandfather was one of the first casualties of the Second World War. So because of that, it's given me a connection with family members, that people that just come in at it from like no perspective, with no background like that. Okay. So my grandfather has always been like a Flashman comic or something like that on paper when you read about him, right? I never knew him. He died 40 years before I was born. Okay. So it's a legacy and stuff, but being raised to know your grandfather was MIA. He's recovered now. He's buried here, but MIA and all this stuff. Okay. So, so it's hard when people are arguing with you about stuff all the time, when I'm saying, okay, look, I know about all this stuff that's going on, but when I chose Mortuary Affairs, I started to think about like, okay, mass casualty event, right? Multiple casualty event, all these different types of things, right? How it relates to Mortuary Affairs, the cycle of Mortuary Affairs. So now what I mean when I'm saying with like release of hostages and everything is like from a Mortuary Affairs perspective. I'm not speaking to you from a human perspective or whatever. And they're always going to argue and say, either side's going to say that they saw that there's evidence of torture and murder, and because that's war, okay? But I just want you to understand, I'm coming at it from a Mortuary Affairs perspective always. So when I went into that Mortuary Affairs thing, like I was always doing like cool living stuff with my family and my partner and all that type of shit, and then my son and my daughter and all that. But my work was like related to people that had been killed in like Cambodia and Vietnam and stuff. Like even when I wasn't doing any work with the DIA, and like in the times that were like gaps and everything, I was up until 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. every morning reading DIA documents, 100%, from the Texas Tech University. Okay. So I'm Mortuary Affairs wired. Okay. So it's like, I'm not here to talk to you about the politics of all the living individuals and shit. It's not my specialty. My living individuals is my specialty, and like the civil affairs component of how to speak with them and operate with them and culturally and like all that type of shit, right? But like we're looking for people that are deceased, not living people mostly. So it's like how to rally the football team together, the community football team together, to go looking for a missing one of our people that's missing over there. And you know, we got to find a missing dead person. We're not looking for a living person. So that's why like I resent, and I get into like a lot of arguments with Americans that are like, well, maybe we're maybe it's like missing in action. Maybe we're dealing with a living person. Okay, let's just say it, Dave. Like, there's a possibility that this could be a living person living in a village, like we've seen in Chuck Norris movies in the 80s and Apocalypse Now. You're being very unreasonable, Dave, for saying that that's not possible, that you're looking for somebody whose helicopter fucking crashed here and they died 55 years ago, right? That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry for being a pragmatist, for saying, yeah, when helicopters fall from the sky, right? But you see, whatever. It happens. Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened. That could have been what happened in Toowoomba. I'm not sure, but it could have been a helicopter. I think it was a Jeep crash or something, right? I'm not sure. But I saw that helicopter crash in Venice Beach recently, okay? And I've dealt with helicopter crash cases before. But, and I don't mean to laugh at it because it's not funny. It's not funny. It's not something to joke about. And there was a helicopter crash in fucking Washington. But I'm just saying, a lot of people think that people are alive as opposed to, okay, we're looking for the bits and pieces of them that incinerated. And it's the same as like looking for the remains of Martin Bormann around like the Fuhrer bunker or some fucking shit like that, right? It's like a chicken's bone, like after you've eaten a cooked chicken's bone worth of remains in some situations, right? With people and stuff. It's a reality. So, like, when you're dealing with mortuary affairs, it's either people that have just been killed in the battlefield. So that's it. It's like in the Ukraine, Michael Henshaw can tell you what's going on because he knows the whole full fucking process of what happens when people get killed there. And there's a lot of people that are getting killed because of the fucking aggression that's going on over there. And his job is to respond to that and to expedite the process in the most respectful possible way of dealing with the dead. So that doesn't mean kill us because this is what we do, but this is where we come at it from. You come at it from, they've killed people on our side and we have to kill people on their side. And some revenge against their remains is against revenge from people on their side. And I'm just like, you motherfuckers are all savages because of the way that you're acting with human remains. You're ghouls, okay? A lot of you, that you would be doing that. Okay? So with me, I come at it with a very positive attitude about life, but also with the reality that we've got lost people and that you have funeral directors and people like that here that make a living from doing that as a profession. And then you have people that, like myself, who have been involved in it and have been working with people that have done it as a profession their whole lives and was trained by those people. So I come from a mortuary affairs background, not a, like, you know, that's a perspective that I've been looking at things for at least 20 years now. Since 2005, since I went over to Vietnam. and I learned about this stuff, and I became interested in it. And around the time that Alan Davis had found the final Australian Vietnam War MIAs and that plane crash, okay, is when I started to, or just after that was when I met Alan, and he started to get me into the MIA POW thing. He was a corrections officer. He's passed away now. But he's the one, Arn and Alan were the ones that got me into the MIA POW thing in the first place. Australian couple, Australian Vietnamese couple in Vung Tau. Okay. So, and then as soon as I got into it, it didn't exist anymore for Australia. And then that's how I ended up meeting Ian Griffin, who introduced me to Michael Henshaw and everybody. And then I started to get Griffin and Henshaw telling me about Mortuary Affairs missions all the time. And it just got me more and more interested in it. So don't take it personally when with all that type of stuff, right? So with me, joking about the Charlie Kirk thing is the highest form of disrespect. And like from a Mortuary Affairs perspective, I haven't watched that man die. You know, I saw a part of it as soon as it happened, and then I have not watched it again. And out of respect for him, and just the fact that there's people that have been acting the way that there are about his situation, but it's fucked, right? And it's no reason for them to try to make any excuse for being desensitized. There's never going to be a time where it's going to be appropriate to joke about it, type of thing. So and it's just, I don't know, you guys are disconnected, I suppose, from what I mean, you know. So that's it. And then you're like, oh, we're just from the sector of the living, and we know these people that can kill you, and it's like everyone's going to fucking die. Mortuary Affairs, it's a reality about, you understand, you embrace that reality about life. It's your work, it's your approach. So with the police, they're dealing with, like, the coroner deals with the dead, right? That's the same as Mortuary Affairs. But like a cop on the beat deals with living and dead, right? And like ambulance and stuff. But Mortuary Affairs, we're just dealing with the dead. We're doing joint operations, Mortuary Affairs, which is like civil affairs, resonance, dissonance, like creating resonance and not making dissonance in a particular area. And we're connecting with the people and all that type of stuff and doing good things in the community, hearts and minds type of stuff. But like, we're deploying in there specifically to look for somebody who's deceased, or we wouldn't be there looking for them in the first place. They're deceased, they didn't come back. We can't work out how to get them back. And then the government and everybody will do anything to get them back, and then we're there. Just so you understand. So don't take it personally. Thank you, everybody.